I was looking through this stack of documents on Catholic fasting regulations, the official rules for Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, and I found something that is, well, it's honestly a little bit funny.
Funny how.
Well, maybe funny isn't the right word. Ironic is probably better.
Okay, ironic.
If you look at the strict black and white legal definition of fasting in the modern church, there's a very high chance that for a huge number of people, the official penance is actually easier than their normal Tuesday diet.
You know, that sounds a bit provocative, but when you actually look at the data on modern eating habits, you're not wrong. We have this sort of cinematic idea of fasting.
Right.
We picture monks in the desert, ribs showing, gnawing on a locust. But the actual canon law requirements are surprisingly, well, gentle.
Gentle is a good word.
Yeah.
So let's just put the rule on the table so everyone's on the same page. According to the USCCB and canon law, for adults between 18 and 59, the obligation is one full meal.
Correct. Just one meal that's sufficient to maintain your strength.
And then two smaller meals. They use this weird old word for them, collation.
Collations, yeah.
And the math is simply that if you add those two smaller meals together, they shouldn't equal the size of the one big meal. And no snacking.
Right, no snacking. But, and this is the big one, liquids are allowed.
Yes, the liquids. And that's a huge loophole when you think about it.
It was a massive loophole. You could technically consume a pretty significant number of calories in liquids and still be perfectly in line with the law.
Exactly. A 600-calorie caramel macchiato is, legally speaking, part of a fast. And that's really where the tension in all this research lies. This huge gap between the legal minimum, the box you have to check,
And the actual spiritual intent, which is supposed to be about, real sacrifice and transformation.
it creates the situation where you can be totally compliant, but spiritually, you're not even moving. It really makes you ask, are we just trying to satisfy a statute, or are we trying to change our hearts?
That's the question.
To get at that, I want to bring up this analogy from the source material that I just thought was perfect. It compares the church's official fasting rules to hockey,
Oh, I love this comparison.
specifically shinny hockey.
Yes. It really contextualizes the why behind these gentle rules.
So for anyone who maybe didn't grow up near a frozen pond, shinny is basically casual pickup hockey.
No referees, no scoreboard.
No, nobody is keeping stats. You might just be out there in your winter coat and boots, just slapping a puck around. The sources argue that the one meal plus two collations rule, that's shinny hockey.
It's the entry level. It's the learn to skate program.
Yes. But then you have the fasting of, say, the early church or the Desert Fathers. That's the NHL.
It's the Stanley Cup Finals.
And that distinction is so important because if you confuse the two, you get into trouble, right? If you think shinny hockey is the peak of spiritual athleticism, you're just deluding yourself.
But on the flip side, if the church made the NHL standard mandatory for every single person, well, nobody would even show up to the rink.
That's that floor versus ceiling concept they talk about, isn't it?
Exactly. The church has to legislate for the universal minimum. This rule is designed to be a floor. It has to work for the 59-year-old grandmother, the 19-year-old college athlete, the busy mom.
And the construction worker. It's a baseline to keep the whole community moving together. It's like a team warm-up drill. It's not meant to weed people out.
No, it's not a test of elite endurance. It's an invitation to participate. But the danger, and the sources are very clear on this, is when we mistake that floor for the ceiling. Just because the rule says you only have to do this much, it doesn't mean that's all you should do.
Well, and this brings me to the history of it. I was looking at this two small meals rule, these collations, and I was wondering, why do we even get those? Why isn't it just one meal and deal with it?
Ah, that is a fascinating rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's technically called the laborer's exception. If you go back a few centuries, fasting was incredibly strict. We're talking about what they called the Black Fast.
Oh, wow.
One meal after sundown and no meat, no dairy, period.
That's serious intensity.
It is. But you have to look at who the faithful were at the time. The vast majority of people were manual laborers. They weren't sitting in ergonomic chairs looking at spreadsheets.
No, they were tilling fields, hauling water, hewing stone.
Right. Building cathedrals by hand. They were burning, 4,000 calories a day just doing their jobs?
Easily.
And they were risking actual physical collapse. So the church realized that if a farmer faints in the field because he hasn't eaten in 18 hours, he can't fulfill his duty of state. He can't provide for his family. So the collations were introduced strictly as fuel.
So it was just a concession to physics.
Precisely. to keep the engine running so the work could get done.
But see, this is where the modern disconnect is so huge. Because I'm looking at my own life and the lives of probably most people listening. We are not plowing the back 40. I sit in a climate-controlled room. I type. I talk. My caloric needs are nowhere near what a medieval stonemasons were.
And that's the absolute crux of the issue. The entire context of our lives has changed. We are probably the most sedentary generation in human history, but the rule has stayed the laborer's exception.
So we're all using a loophole that was designed for heavy laborers while we sit in traffic.
Which leads directly to what the sources call the normal Tuesday problem.
Yeah.
I mean, in our culture today, how many people skip breakfast just because they're busy?
I do that all the time, not because I'm trying to be holy, just because I'm running late.
Exactly. Or they grab a protein bar for lunch and have a regular dinner. Intermittent fasting is a health trend now. People do the 1 meal a day diet for weight loss.
Right.
So if the church comes along and says, for your big spiritual penance, I want you to skip breakfast and have a light lunch, for millions of people, that is literally just a standard Tuesday.
So if your penance is just your normal routine, is it even a penance?
That's the hard question, isn't it? If it costs you nothing, can it be called a sacrifice?
It feels like we're playing shinny hockey, but we didn't even bother to put our skates on. We're just standing on the ice in our street clothes.
And it leads to this danger of legalism. You can follow the letter of the law perfectly, bagel for breakfast, a small salad for lunch, nice steak dinner, and say, okay, I fasted.
Check.
But you haven't actually disrupted your life at all. The sources talk about something called the mirror effect. The fast is supposed to feel strange. It's supposed to disrupt you.
Okay, talk a little more about that mirror effect. Why is the discomfort so necessary?
Because discomfort reveals who we actually are. When you're full and you're comfortable, it's easy to be patient, it's easy to be kind. But when you're hungry, when you get hangry,
Oh, absolutely.
that illusion of sanctity just drops away pretty fast.
Yeah, if I miss a meal, I get snappy. I get irritable.
Yeah, the mirror. The fast isn't creating that anger, it's revealing it. It's showing you that your patience wasn't based on grace, it was based on your blood sugar. And that realization, that's the first step. It strips away the illusion of self-sufficiency.
That makes a lot of sense. But there's a darker side to this, too, which the sources really hammered home. This big distinction between fasting and hunger.
Yes. This is, I think, maybe the most important theological point in all the research. Fasting is fundamentally an act of power.
How so?
You have food. You have the money for food.
Yeah.
You are choosing voluntarily not to eat it for a higher purpose.
Whereas hunger...
Hunger, in the social justice sense, is a suffering that's imposed by circumstance or by injustice. The person sleeping under the bridge isn't fasting. They are hungry. They have no choice in the matter.
So if I'm fasting and I'm feeling proud of myself for skipping my lunch, but I'm just ignoring the person who has no lunch...
Then you are missing the entire point. The physical sensation of hunger, that little gnawing feeling in your stomach, it's supposed to be a bridge. It's meant to build solidarity. It's a moment where you physically feel, just for a few hours, a tiny fraction of what the poor feel every single day.
So it stops being some kind of athletic feat and starts being an act of empathy.
And this isn't some new idea. The sources point right back to the Old Testament, to Isaiah 58. It is one of the most blistering critiques of false piety in the entire Bible.
I was reading that section, and it is harsh. God is basically yelling at the people.
He really is. The people are asking God, why are we fasting and you aren't seeing it? We're punishing our bodies. Why don't you care?
And God's response is basically, because you're terrible to each other.
That's it in a nutshell. He says, on the day of your fast, you do as you please. You exploit all your workers. You fast with quarreling and strife, and you strike each other with wicked fists.
Striking with wicked fists, that is a vivid image.
It's the ultimate indictment of that shinny hockey mentality. You're following the rules of the game. You aren't eating, but you're treating your employees badly. You're fighting with your spouse. You're ignoring the poor. God's response is, do you call this a fast?
So a fast that doesn't lead to justice isn't a fast. It's just a diet with a bad attitude.
Precisely. If the stomach is empty but the heart is full of resentment or greed, the fast is completely void. The text explicitly says the fast God chooses is to loose the chains of injustice, to share your food with the hungry.
Okay, so that raises the stakes significantly. We've gone from, can I have a cappuccino, to, am I liberating the oppressed? That's a huge jump. How does a normal person actually bridge that gap on an average Ash Wednesday?
The sources give a very clear verdict on this. If
Right.
we want to move from the legal minimum to the spiritual reality, the absolute key is almsgiving.
Connecting the food to the money.
It's the practical application of Isaiah 58. Think about it. If you skip lunch, you are saving money. Let's say a decent lunch costs you, what, $15 or $20 these days?
Lazily.
If you skip that meal, but you just keep the $20 in your pocket, the benefit ends with you. But the championship level of fasting, the NHL level, is taking that specific amount of money, the money you didn't eat, and giving it to someone who needs it.
That completes the loop.
It does. It transforms a physical deprivation into a real act of love. You're not just not eating. You are actively transferring your resources to someone else. That is how you break the normal Tuesday cycle.
I like that because it's so concrete. It's not just some vague, be nicer. It's calculate the cost of your lunch and give it away.
It makes the sacrifice tangible.
Now, I do want to touch on the heroic fasting part of the notes, because even with the almsgiving, some people, maybe the young, the healthy, might feel like the physical side of the 1 and 2 rule is still just too easy. They want to do more. What do the sources say about, ramping up the physical side of it?
The sources are cautious here, which is good. They suggest that if you're healthy, you can certainly move toward a stricter fast, bread and water, or maybe just water until dinner. But the warning is very clear. Check your ego.
Don't do it just to prove you're tough.
Exactly. If you're doing a Spartan fast so you can feel superior to the people eating their collations, you've already failed spiritually. The goal of increasing the physical difficulty isn't to prove your strength, it's to hit the wall.
The wall.
The wall of your own weakness. We talked about the mirror effect earlier. If the light fast doesn't make you irritable or reveal your spiritual poverty, maybe you do need to go a little harder. You want to reach that point where you feel fragile, where you want to snap at someone.
Because that's the moment where you can actually pray.
That's the moment. When you hit that wall, you stop relying on your own willpower, and you have to ask for help.
The sources actually gave some specific tools for that moment. Because I think we've all been there. You're fasting, it's 3:00 p.m., you have a headache, and you're just white-knuckling it. You aren't praying, you're just waiting for dinner.
Which is just endurance. It's not piety.
So the suggestion was to use these quick strike aspirations, these short little prayers, right in that moment of hangriness.
One of them was, Lord, let this hunger be a prayer for those who have no food today.
That immediately turns your focus outward again. It's not about you anymore.
Another was simply, not my will, but yours be done. Or even, Jesus, I trust in you to sustain me. It's about pivoting from I'm so annoyed to I'm totally dependent.
There is also a very practical biological tip in there that I think is worth mentioning, especially if people do try to go stricter.
Hydration factor.
Yeah, the idea that our bodies often confuse the signal for thirst with the signal for hunger.
It's absolutely true. Often when you feel that first pang, what you're really feeling is dehydration. The recommendation is to significantly increase your water intake. It helps you distinguish, I need something in my stomach from, I actually need caloric energy.
And drinking water is not cheating.
Not at all. Treating the body with respect is part of the whole theology.
Yeah.
You're disciplining the body, not trying to damage it.
So if we pull all of this together, we've gone from the shinny hockey of the legal rules through the history of the laborer all the way to the justice of Isaiah 58. If we had to summarize the big mindset shift we need, what is it?
I think it's realizing the 1 and 2 rule, that legal minimum is a safety net, not a target. It's there to make sure the sick and the elderly and the beginners are all included in the family. But for those of us who are capable, we shouldn't be looking for the minimum requirement.
We shouldn't be asking how little can I possibly do and still get credit.
We should be asking, how can this experience actually change me? The purpose of the fast isn't to show God how much willpower you have. He already knows you don't have much. The purpose is to reveal your weakness so you can finally let him in, and to let that feeling of emptiness connect you to the people who are empty every single day.
Moving from a checklist to a relationship.
Perfectly said.
So I guess the question we want to leave you with today is this. When you look at your sacrifice for this coming fast, whether it's Ash Wednesday or Good Friday, is it actually costing you anything? Or are you just playing shinny hockey in your street clothes?
It's a question worth sitting with.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.